what would diversity mean for different sectors, or is it a generic definition?
Good question, Dev. Diversity is about people having different characteristics or thought processes, or they look different, they think different, they act different. We all have bias. I'm biased, you're biased. My marriage finished, and I kind of had this mental and physical energy. You give me the little start of the thread, and I will follow it through, and I will find the little I'm like a dog with a bone, very, very deliberate and focused. To be honest, recruiters could be lazy, 100% guilty of it. Many times I hear, oh, Ash, yeah, we'd love to hire a woman, but we advertise and we don't get any. Well, go and bloody find them. To get a fair outcome, you need to be inequitable.
So you have to discriminate.
You have to.
You have to be inequitable to make it equitable.
Exactly, because
before we get started, please subscribe so that you never miss an episode of our cutting edge contemporary conversations. Thank you.
Welcome, Ashley. How are you?
I am feeling really energized, excited, and I'm ready to smash 2026. Thank you.
That's good. Thank you for the time today. And before I delve into the realm of equity and your work through that space, could you share a bit of your background, and then how did you land up in the work you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a Northern Ireland girl at heart, was born and raised there. And so I completed my bachelor's degree in business management with an honours. And after that, I secured a grad program. So I worked for an IT company for 9 months and got the opportunity to travel to a trade show in China, which just gave me a bit of a taste for international experience. And long story short, they offered me a job after the 9 months, but I had a little itch which I had to scratch, so decided to take a gap year. And I taught English in China for 6 months and traveled backpacked around South Africa. And then I met someone just before I left. And so then whenever I came back from my adventures, we got married and decided to move out to Australia to have a better life, live the dream, etc. So we did that back in 2011, and I've just never looked back. Back in Northern Ireland, we have these shows on the TV, which is Brits Abroad, and it basically follows the story of people who have moved from the UK to Australia. And I feel like I am living the dream of that now, and haven't looked back since. So arrived in 2011 and was working in the recruitment industry at the time. So obviously things were really happening back then. So just kind of fell into a role. And stayed with that company right up until I secured this position about just less than 4 years ago, where my CEO sponsored me into the role. So that's a very, very short, there's a lot more to unpack during that time, Dev, but that's a very, crash course in me.
Thank you for sharing that. How did the intent of getting into the world of gender equity start for you?
Yeah.
Where it started, yes, you have done a PhD now, but where did it start? When you were at uni or on the school days? That's how that intent of balancing the equation came to you?
Sure. So I think as a person, fairness has always been a really grounding part of who I am and how I think, and what I think is just. So I think I've always been an advocate for fairness, and whether it's just making sure that people are treated with respect in the schoolyard, and right back to primary school, I can remember times when just fairness at its core, and then really the real instigator was through my experience in the recruitment industry in Australia. And I was in a sales role. So my job was to talk to companies and say, hey, how can we partner with you? Where are the gaps? Tell me about your talent strategies. How can we support you? And about 7 years ago, I noticed a theme in these conversations, which was, oh, Ash, we really want to hire more women, but we don't know how. We don't know where to start. We've tried this and it failed, and now we're just lost. So upon reflecting on this recurring theme at that time, I had a niggle that there was a gap there. So there was appetite for change, but there was a gap in the how. And I'm the kind of person which, if I know that there's desire for a social impact, I can't sit back and do nothing about it. So coincidentally, about that time, my marriage to the guy who I moved to Australia with finished. And so I was just doing a bit of just general, life reflection and
soul searching.
Absolutely soul searching. And I kind of had this like mental and physical energy, which I hadn't had for quite some time. And so through a random conversation with friends who worked in education, I found out if you had an honours degree that you could bypass your MBA and go straight for a PhD. And I'm the kind of person, I will find you give me like the little start of the thread and I will follow it through and I will find like the little kind of the source. I'm like a dog with a bone, very, very deliberate and focused. So I just basically figured out the landscape of what I needed to do to apply for a PhD and what it would all be about. And what I learned through that process was PhDs are all about meeting a research gap. So I put that concept with the themes in my conversations and went, well, this is what I have to do. So initially, naively, when I had my initial meetings with my supervisors, I said, well, I'm going to make the ultimate inclusion and diversity guide. And they're like, no, you're not. Because with a PhD, you have to go micro specific. So you need to choose an aspect of diversity. So I chose gender because it had been so topical. I'm, a woman myself, but also had started to be aware of the gendered norms and burdens which other genders face. And then we landed on an industry, mining, Western Australia, and we landed on a location, Western Australia, because I'm based here. And so that's where the kind of the passion really came from, and it's been a whirlwind journey since then.
Wow, it's very interesting to see the transition from when you recruit people. There are in recruitment there are known biases. When you are looking at the CV without the photo, with the photo, when you're meeting people, how they're sitting, how they're standing. So it's very interesting to see that you are trying to have a similar lens through a PhD angle. Before we go to gender equity side of it, if you can talk a bit more, what's your observation on recruitment side of it? That what are the biases people have to go through? And different, demographics. If you want to take some examples, that'd be lovely.
Yeah, sure. So we all have bias. I'm biased. You're biased. We all have it. So I think the first step is the awareness about it. And with bias, some of it is conscious. There are people out there deliberately blocking certain groups from getting certain roles, or just certain people, regardless of their characteristics. And then there's unconscious bias. And so raising the level of awareness around that is absolutely key. And also just acknowledging that we all have it. Like, what do we, everyone has it. No one can say they are unbiased. So I think in the recruitment area, it's a really exciting area because recruitment is really the kind of the gateway to, which people get which jobs, whether people get an interview or not, whether people get a phone screen or not. Recruiters are so key because if they're not kind of aware of their own bias and have the appropriate training and by the way, are making sure that the recruitment teams themselves are diverse and representative of the population which they serve, we're never going to get anywhere. So recruitment has a huge opportunity to make massive gains in this space if they are educated, inspired and empowered, and if we have our systems and processes and teams set up correctly to really enable all potential candidates to thrive throughout the process.
Because I think you're very right. It's the front end of provided opportunities. And I think you don't need to have specific push to a specific group. I think people are good, and if you provide them equal opportunities to, rather than being biased and saying, okay, only this group will get more opportunities, but if you give opportunities equally to everybody, and the best mind and or the best brains will coming forward.
That's right. And look, it's an area I'm really passionate about, having worked in it for probably 14 years. But another thing about recruitment is a lot of it tends to be reactive. So we're putting, job ads out or newspaper ads or social media campaigns, and we're waiting to see who responds. Whereas in a lot of cases, especially in leadership roles or really niche roles, you really need to be proactive. And so recruitment teams need to have the resources and the time and the people power they need to actually go and tap on shoulders. Because if we just rely on, I remember these stats from my recruitment days, only about 30% of candidates are actively looking at any one time, which leaves 70% who are out there and working and potentially the best mind-blowing candidate for your role. But if you're not kind of proactively attempting to engage with them, you're never going to hear about them and they're never going to hear about you. So that's an area which is a huge area that we advocate for, because in this world of gender equity, how many times I hear, oh, Ash, yeah, we'd love to hire a woman, but we advertise and we don't get any. Well, go and bloody find them. Because there's so many things that you can do to not only make that ad more appealing to a wider range of people and remove barriers for all people to engage with that opportunity, but what are you doing about it? If you're advertising and you're not getting gender balance in that, there's so many levers you can pull. So that's another big thing which we advocate for is being proactive and not just reactive from a recruitment perspective when you're trying to build a diverse workplace.
Yeah. And how does, because recruiters don't meet all of the people who they want to forward to the client or who they want to finally put that up for the job role. What are the telltale signs when you are interacting with somebody in person to gauge confidence, leadership, whether you are, fluffing it up or not.
Yeah.
So how do you observe? Because that they have sat with many people with trying to, present the whole story of, yay, I'm good, I'm the champ, I'm the top one.
That's right.
For the role. So how do you filter through that, the theater of.
Yes, there's a lot of theatre. My goodness, the people I hired who I was just like, for my own teams in the past or recommended for clients who, promised the world and then they're the ones who actually didn't work out and might have even done damage. Whereas sometimes the more like unassuming kind of wild card were the ones who actually really thrived. So look, recruitment is very, very tricky. The most seasoned professional can still be fooled because people are really, really tricky. So I think the answer is to, throughout the whole process, like build in as many different checkpoints and other like third-party opinions, and obviously reference checking, maybe give some like more like scenario-based or like values-based questions, and looking for those kind of examples is where you can, because people can just regurgitate a CV, people can make up examples, but I think for me, towards the end of my recruitment, career, when I was getting a bit more savvy with this, I would just keep things really casual and just be like, not even have, in some cases, structured questions, and just having it more like conversational so that you could try and get them to feel relaxed and at ease and able to kind of put their best self out there in that scenario. Because what people kind of organizations who are hiring forget is it's not all about you. Like, you need to sell yourself to this candidate as well, especially with the way the recruitment cycle goes. Sometimes it's a employer's market, sometimes it's a candidate's market. So just really trying to set the person up for success to get across who, their true kind of self and the values that you can bring. Gut feel is not often wrong as well. So just, kind of following your gut. body language, and really overall looking for potential values, attitude, habits, more so than X amount of years experience. That's something we really advocate our members to do as well. Now, are you going to send someone with zero mining experience to run a mine site? Of course not. But what is some complementary experience which maybe they have, which is very applicable? And by the way, you can have someone with 20 years experience running mine sites who is toxic. Right? So it's about seeing more than the past experience and looking at the person's potential and kind of some of those more personal skills, because you can train people up for anything, but values, habits, personality traits can't really be trained as much.
On the idea of when you are recruiting, which we talked about values, habits, and when you are recruiting for a role which is very specific, you have a job description to deliver, and it's a technical kind of a role. And when you're hiring for senior leadership, essentially, and the deliverables are part technical and part, aspirational.
Yes.
How do you see them as a culture fit? Is one of the conversations to be had, probably, how they can see the growth, or in terms of, the way they think, the strategic mindset is probably one of the conversations to be had, and an operational mindset as well. So how do you see the mix of operational mindset, strategic mindset, and a cultural lens being played when somebody's recruiting for senior leadership roles, because they are fairly entrepreneurial in some way or form, and also very much regimented in some way or form. So discipline and but more free will types, So how do you see in that scenario? What are things to be mattered?
Sure. So I think it has to start in the very early. I guess the origin of the role, is it a new role? Is it a replacement role? And the conversations between recruitment, human resources, and the line manager / executive / board. In those initial conversations, we need to be talking about what are the absolute, essential criteria here, and where can we open things up? And so I guess you want to go in the process with the most open mindset that we can. Now, I used to work in recruitment, so I know that if I used to, back in the day, I used to speak with, maybe CEOs of companies, and they said, don't tell me anyone without 10 years experience. Far out. That just knocks so many potential people out. So all I'm saying is, in the early days, how can we widen this as far as possible? How can we widen the pool as far as possible? Does it have to be that industry experience? Does it have to be that system experience? Or are there systems which are really similar to that? Or can we send them on a training course for that if they're like an awesome, inspirational, proven leader and they don't have that? So in the early days, with the leadership experience, the strategy, how open can we go? Because that in those early discussions, that's so important, because everything flows from that. The recruitment campaign, how you position the ad, how you decide to call, what do you decide to call the role, everything flows from that. So if you can get into that open-minded mindset from the beginning, and then craft the whole process around that. And by the way, make sure there's diversity in the discussions in the early days as well. So at the end of the day, there could be, it's not safe for someone to, run a manufacturing plant without Six Sigma or whatever the case may be. But in every scenario, there is an opportunity to broaden the pool. So how can you do that? Could you look at overseas candidates? Could you look at candidates and just upskill them with some training? Could you buddy them up with, if they've got gaps, could you buddy them up with someone for a certain amount of time? So it's hard to say without, rock solid examples, but there's always ways that you can broaden the pool. If you look at my background for my role, which I secured, so I went from being a state sales manager to a CEO. So on paper, I would not have looked like a suitable candidate. I had no executive experience. I had no work experience in the gender equity industry. So on paper, I looked nothing like my predecessor. Yet here I am, and I'm thriving because the board could see my potential, my passion, my transferable skills. So that's the main kind of story I'm trying to get across is that we need to to be honest, and I've said this before, recruiters, especially back in the heyday, 2011, whenever I arrived here, recruiters could be lazy. 100%. Done it myself, guilty of it. You know, you're given a brief, oh, they've got 10 years experience, boom, there you go. Recruiters have been lazy in the past, and some are lazy now as well. It takes more time, takes more effort to, you know, do all of this stuff, right? Yeah. But the outcome is magic when it's done right.
If I have to jump the conversation on, as you talked about at the early stage of the job role, to broadening the pool and adding the conversation of diversity. But before I go there, could you broadly define what would diversity mean for different sectors, or is it a generic definition? And then what are the key parameters or telltale signs that it's a functional definition for that sector rather than just a generic overarching statement?
Big question there, far out. So you know, diversity is about, you know, people who have different, you know, characteristics or, you know, thought processes, or they look different, they think different, they act different, they sound different. So there's so many different aspects to diversity. It could be, you know, the country you were born. It could be neurodiversity. It could be your age. It could be your upbringing. It could be your gender. It could be your sexuality. So many different aspects of diversity. And like at its kind of core, what I'm kind of passionate about is representing the population that you serve. And so, you know, if you look at, say, like the population of Australia, X amount are born overseas, X amount are men, X amount are neurodiverse. So ideally, it's about representing the population that you serve. Different industries have different gendered issues. So as an example, the healthcare sector, the education sector, they're feminized. They're about 3/4 women. They need more men. Because in health and education, you're serving the population. So like the general population. So the population of Australia is about 50-50, purely from a gender perspective. So they need more women. If you've got a leadership team, a board full of women, that's not good. You need more men and, you know, other aspects of diversity as well, because otherwise you get groupthink. And there's the neuroscience, groupthink feels good. Oh, look how well we're getting along. Conversations flow and we're making decisions really easy. So it's comfortable, and that's why we gravitate towards it. But that is not, then you have blind spots. There's things that you don't see, and you're not accessing the full potential out of any decision or any conversation, because the magic that diversity brings is unbelievable. So those industries have an issue where they need to engage more men from a gender perspective. And then you have the issues of, you know, I guess male dominated industries such as, you know, mining and construction. And they need to get more women engaged, because again, a male-dominated workforce leadership team is no good. So really, the magic happens when there is balance, and as different industries have different things going on. So it's about looking at, okay, as an industry or as an organization or as a team, where are we at? You need to take a good hard look in the mirror and kind of see where you're at, and then, okay, where are the priorities here? So your gender diversity might be pretty good, but what about culturally and linguistically diverse, or age diversity, or, you know, neurodiversity? Where are so it starts from having a look in the mirror, and then kind of taking, you know, prioritizing what aspect of diversity is most kind of, you know, lacking, and that's where you go first.
So one is having diversity at the corporate level, but it starts at the university or school level.
Yes.
So I went to an engineering university. So we had one of the departments was mechanical engineering, and in the 4 years there was no girl. So when I was in second year, there was in the mechanical engineering department, there was one girl out of a batch of 60.
Wow.
So 60 boys across four years of batches.
Yeah.
And the first year there was one girl. And I don't think the university was trying to force that have more women into the mechanical engineering department. It was preferred by people who chose to be doing mechanical engineering or computer science engineering or what not. But that were preferences by individuals. So there was not anything which being forced. So if you see on the other side of the education, there'll be less women mechanical engineers being produced on that front. And hence, if the population has it's unequal distribution of more one gender than less one gender, that would be represented in the jobs as well. So how do you see that the challenge which starts at the education space from a diversity? Because at corporates we are saying let's force it, or let's not force it. Let's consciously look towards it and create that space. But if the population is less from that specific roles point or at education level, so how do you see that issue or challenge being managed at education level?
This is a big passion area of mine. And so you're right. So still, if we take engineering, for example, it's still about 15%, I think, on average. Graduates are, so it's probably more. So
depending on streams,
that's right.
Yeah, there'll be more. And I think I've seen there in the computer science sector, probably there's almost equal.
Okay, good. So the issue is, Dev.
In my college,
sure.
Not generally.
The issue is society, primary schools, high schools, gendered norms are riddled with barriers. And so I am confident if all of the barriers were removed, naturally, more women, who wouldn't want to be an engineer? What a cool job, well paid, impact, you can go internationally. Who wouldn't want to do that? The issue at the minute is there are a multitude of barriers in the way. So we need to start from birth. When children are born, making sure that we're not reinforcing gendered norms and stereotypes in the toys that we get them to engage with, in the storybooks we get them to enter, and then as they get a bit older and start thinking about, what do you want to be when you grow up? We need to take away all the barriers and norms and stereotypes which are there, which again, conscious and unconscious. There's both, probably more so unconscious. So we need to take all those away with our conversations around the dinner table with children in primary schools. There's a bit of work, lots of work being done at university level, some at high school level. Primary school, very little being done to break down those norms and those stereotypes. What subjects, who's encouraging subject choices and passions. And the problem is, by the time you leave primary school, you've already got an idea of generally what you want to do when you grow up, right? You've already found your subject passion areas. So we need to get into the primary schools. We need to engage and inspire.
So you're saying in kids. Primary schools that which are co-eds.
Yes.
So that there's a consciously, as in the teachers are doing it? No, sorry.
Everyone's doing it.
Is it there are the barriers being, so that's what you're saying, it's in primary school level for co-ed kids which are doing a similar curriculum.
And not even just co-ed, in all boys schools, are we, do they have courses on, like healthcare? Are we pushing and encouraging, you're bringing in, male role models in those fields as well as the traditionally male dominated fields, just so that their eyes are open to the full range of personality and they don't identify a career choice with a gender. And likewise in, all girls schools, is there as much of a focus on maths, science, engineering, as well as, all the social sciences and healthcare and things like that? I know for a fact there's not. I know that there's work starting to be done, but nowhere near where it needs to be to get a broader societal cultural shift. And so it's we need to engage the students. We need to engage and support the teachers to have these conversations, to see these gendered norms in action and be able to stop it and interact and change the narrative. And then there's the parents. Because I've had these conversations a lot, and there's actually a lot of schools doing a lot of things. But what I hear is then I heard a specific story about a teacher who told me they brought in like a woman engineer, and so this kid was like, this girl was like really like inspired and went away and told the teacher she was so excited, and she came back the next day and said, oh no, my dad said it's not safe to work on mine sites in engineering or something. So dream, idea squashed like that. So we also need to engage the parents on this, because you can do all the work, but if you go home and you're around the dinner table and the parents are reinforcing the gendered stereotypes about industries, role types, it's never going to change. So it's really a big I don't like to say issue, I like to see it as an opportunity.
And you talked about role models. So, for example, it's a boys' school, and if you want to bring role models of different sectors, but why could a female engineer speak to all boys' school and still be a role model? Why
Absolutely.
As in, for example, what do you think there's a human need to find exactly somebody like them as a role model to be inspired?
No, I don't believe that that's the case. But at the minute, we are leaning into the traditional gendered norms and stereotypes. It has to be a very conscious effort. When you look at the lineup of speakers or career days, or, we lean into what's comfortable and what the norm is. It takes a very deliberate effort, as a lot of this work around gender equity and diversity and inclusion, it takes a very deliberate effort. And I don't believe that it's been, it's kind of showcased or shouted about enough that it needs to be, to get the real shift in the core of our future generation that it needs to. And another point about universities and companies. So you said, like you said, the universities, well, they don't care what gender the students are, right? They just want loads of students.
Yeah.
But again, it's a bit of the kind of the recruitment mentality, as in they just, I guess, they have relationships with high schools, they advertise their courses and they see what they get. To what degree are they being proactive and kind of going out and breaking down, those norms, maybe offering scholarships to underrepresented groups to take away some of those barriers? We've had some amazing success stories from some of our member organizations who have actually, rather than just saying, oh, there's only 15% female grads and we're all fighting over the same pool, what are you doing about it? Right? So what they're doing about it is they're investing in vacation programs. So they're getting high school kids in to see this amazing world of engineering and construction. And then they're keeping in touch with them. Then they're offering them scholarships to choose engineering subjects. So you're opening these students' minds, you're building a relationship with them. And you're taking away the cost / the choice barrier by incentivizing them to choose this subject. So, and you could put that on steroids, but it's not being kind of done at the minute. And there's lots of different reasons why this work's important, like the moral case, the social case, the legal case. But even from a university perspective, if I was a university vice chancellor, I'd be saying, well, I want as many students as possible. If only 15% of my students are women, I'm missing out. What can I do? Because that's another, 50% of the potential market, which I'm missing out on. What can I do?
Can I ask you to just a bit more elaborate on the model case of, to give an example of probably, one of the large healthcare providers who have primarily in a feminized workforce, majority of them are women. And if we have to do the same tool, go to all boys school and incentivize and give scholarships for somebody to do a healthcare course. And when they come to university, so there are two set of students. One is, a girl who has come out from a school, she's paying full fee, whereas this boy who comes from all boys school, just because we want more diversity, he's paying less fee because through scholarship.
Yep.
So are these two equal? Because have we not created disparity between or discriminated amongst two people who we wanted to equalize?
To create equity, we need to be inequitable.
So you have to discriminate.
You have to get, because if we keep doing the same, if we keep doing and rolling with things the way we have been, this is why we're in the outcome, the situation that we are. So we need to be inequitable to get a fair outcome. So it's exactly the same message. Yeah, whether you're a feminized industry company team, you need to deliberately and absolutely there's preference there. You have to allocate some weighting to that, because that's the problem you're trying to fix. So it's to get a fair outcome, you need to be inequitable, because equity is all about looking at the different starting points of people, right? So the starting points of someone who wants to pursue healthcare. For a girl, it just organically happens. They're inspired. Women are caring, nurturing, motherly. Throughout their whole schooling experience, they'll be encouraged with their friends, all the conversations to pursue that career. A boy who wants to pursue that career has so many barriers in the way. They don't see people who look like them. They may want to have a deep affinity with wanting to care for people and help people, but maybe the dad's like, you're not doing that. You need to go and study engineering, or they're not empowered in primary school or at high school. So to fix that, we need to, whatever the case may be, we have to consider the different starting points. Like very few barriers for girls who want to pursue a career in health, so many barriers for men. So if one of the ways is to offer scholarships to, bring that idea to those people and take away a bit of the cost barrier, beautiful. Get over it. We just have to do it.
Wow. I think thanks for clarifying, because and what's the end looks like. So the end, so for you, so you are discriminating an unequal population at this stage.
Yes.
With one group, and then incentivizing another group, which you want to, and then you want to. What does fair means to you in the end? What's the end objective?
Look, I'm not saying every team, every company, every industry should be 50-50. I'm not saying that. I don't think that's realistic. What I'm saying is we need to take away all the barriers in society, in schools, in our systems, in our processes. And when we've done that, then, things will organically flow. So, maybe the healthcare industry, as a very broad school of thought, 40-40-20. So if we have at least 40% representation of a certain gender, and 40 of the other, and the other 20 is flex, right? That's life. It's never going to be, 50-50. So I think if we got to a position of 40% representation of an underrepresented group in any team, company, or industry, I'd be very happy with that, and I would have done my job.
I'll give you an example of, or before I go there, when does you said, I need to talk about diversity at the stage of when you're defining the job description or job role, and what you're looking for, expand the pool, or broaden the pool. When do you think these job ads or, strategies or vision values, mission values, and all of that stuff becomes very tokenistic towards? So where do you draw the line with more tokenism, but they're looking like they're doing something, and in large and mid-sized and small corporates? But when it's more authentic, how do you see, because everybody's doing similar things or saying similar things?
Yes.
The language has been adopted in many ways and form. So what's the evidence that it's real, or what's the evidence that they're not just, I hate being tokenistic to anybody. I don't want to.
Yeah.
People might want to do it for financial reasons, but it's difficult to be just tokenistic. You have to be authentic in whatever you do. That's I strongly believe in. So how do you define tokenism versus authenticity in this realm?
Look, first of all, elephant in the room, is there tokenism out there on gender equity, inclusion, and diversity? Absolutely. Of course there is. And again, some of it's conscious, some of it's unconscious. Some companies are just going, oh crap, we need to, set targets now for the Workplace Gender Equality Agency. Let's just, do this. And that is not a good thing. It's not going to work out, and it's actually going to do damage to your organization. Is it out there? Absolutely. And, whenever this topic of gender equity started becoming hot, about 7 years ago when, whenever I started my research journey, at that time, because there was a huge lack of research and resources, companies just defaulted to the number, to the diversity in itself. Oh, okay, we're a male dominated, say, a defense organization. We'll just hire a bunch of women and that'll kind of cool. That's what we'll do. And I heard so many stories of companies that did that. And like I said, if you're a male, or let's flip the narrative because I keep going male dominated. Let's say you're a hospital and you really want to get
space.
You're
running an aged care organization which have primarily nurses who are interacting with our elderly.
That's right. So let's say that, and let's say, right, we want to get more male nurses, and you do a big recruitment drive and you have a big cohort of male nurses and you just go, oh, phew, happy days, we've done that. But if you don't bring if you haven't brought those employees along on the journey as to why, okay, there's going to be more men around the place. You're going to notice more men around the place. This is why we're doing it, because more diverse and inclusive workplaces are better for everyone. If you don't bring people on the journey from the beginning so that they know the why, they know that it's not a zero-sum game. And when the men start arriving, they're well aware of it. They know what's happening. They're set up to, the organization, the culture is set up to welcome and include those men. Unless you've done that, you're going to be riddled with issues and it could actually backfire. These days, I think one of the original questions was, how do you know it's authentic? The best way that you can find out is by speaking to people who work there. If you know people who work there or a friend of a friend, Glassdoor is a website where employees leave feedback on organizations. Now, you can't take it all as gospel. Of course, generally the people who go online are the ones who complain.
The unhappy.
Yeah, but, it's worthwhile looking at and, considering that there will generally be a more negative lens, but still, those are real life stories. You'd like to think from people. You can look up news articles. You can, look through like their social media. You can look through their website, their ESG reports. There's lots of different ways you can kind of temperature check the authenticity of organizations. But what I would say is, in some cases, like some of the CEOs who I meet, they say to me, it's a feminized organization. They say to me, I want to do better, but I don't know how to articulate it. So the core intent is true and is authentic. Sometimes the process to drive an impact is a little bit clunky, and some things might fail, but it's about, and that's really on the CEO to be as open and vulnerable on their own, and that's kind of what we help them to do at CEOs for Gender Equity, is to start getting some of the right language and kind of be more open and vulnerable about their own gender equity experiences and why this work is important to them and why they want to do this. So that's on the CEO.
And some sectors, as we talked about healthcare earlier, so you have nurses, if you go one step above or at the level of specialist, when somebody is a neurosurgeon or orthopedic surgeon, you are, and then you talked about suggesting that, you have to be inequitable to make it equitable. How can you force diversity at that level when there is somebody's life on the line? So how do you, for example, because that role is primarily on, can you deliver that?
Yes.
Doesn't make a difference what your gender is.
That's right.
Can you do a good surgery? And are you a good cardiac surgeon? Are you a good neurosurgeon? Because there's life on the line.
That's right.
So do you think, where does diversity conversations should stop and should only be limited to merit? And that, that's the job role. Can you do it? Doesn't make a difference, woman or a man.
Yeah. So that's a prime example. I don't want to be operated on by someone who doesn't have the skills to do it, right? That's life or death. You can't be messing around at that stage and in that field. And I assume there's like really rigorous, expectations around, training and experience. And that is totally fair enough. No issue with that. But what are we doing to build diversity into the pipeline? Because that's where you can have influence.
Yeah.
No one is born a neurosurgeon. So what are we doing to inspire, gender diversity in the interest in that field and to select those subjects which line up with those university courses, which line up with those further education, having a gender lens on that and building the diversity in from the very entry point. Do not tell me there's nothing you can do there, because there are a million of different ideas and initiatives you can do. And that's what a lot of our members do who are, dominated by a certain gender in their, in their organizations or in certain functions. They focus on the entry point. So grad programs, vacation programs, generally whenever the role doesn't require experience, you can absolutely go for gender balance there or close to. And so many of our member organizations do. So what happens is when you get gender balance at that entry point and have a really deliberate lens on that, whereas by default, you might it might have swayed naturally towards a certain gender. Then it might it might become a little bit more unbalanced as you go up in the organization. But the minimum you can do for roles with no experience is get gender balance at the entry point. If all companies did that, it would make such a difference. So yeah, I don't want an inexperienced neurosurgeon, but what are you doing here so that our pipeline and our pool of future neurosurgeons is more gender diverse?
What do you think about the concept of women tax? For example, if somebody is running a leadership program, it has a price point, but you add the word women leadership program, it goes up. It is costlier than a normal leadership program if you add the word women leadership. For example, if there's an event on leadership summit, it has a price point, but if you add the word women leadership, the price goes almost double or triple.
Wow.
So then that I feel that I've observed so many of these things, and I think just because you have added the word women, leadership is transferable.
Absolutely.
You can learn leadership from good leaders, whoever they might be. Just because you add the word women in front of it, and the accessibility becomes an issue. Because if the price point is higher than the normal leadership programs or normal leadership events where you can get equally good leaders just because you added the word women in front of it, the pricing is much higher than the normal leaders of equal caliber. So how do you see that, accessibility for women just because they're trying to support women, but they are doing the inverse of it because the pricing is much higher?
Well, this is the first I've heard of this phenomenon, so thanks for bringing it to my attention. What I would say on the subject is, again, look at the issue that we're trying to address broadly. At CEO level in Australia, it's still low 20%. So we've got a gender balance and leadership issue in that. I think in every sector, we need to get more women in leadership. So if anything, because that's the issue, I would argue that women-specific leadership programs, which I have a bit of an issue with, by the way, should be 2 or 3 times cheaper, because we're trying to remove the barrier by having it. That just doesn't make sense to me. This is the issue we're trying to fix. Yet, if it's 2 to 3 times the price, there's enough barriers there already. Don't make even more. It should be, if anything, cheaper. So I certainly don't agree or subscribe to it. And
same here.
Yeah, and
it should be either equal or less. Why would
so.
It be higher?
Yeah, it
just
doesn't make
because
sense.
you have added, because the commercial angle on the back end, somebody's thinking that, okay, because I can use the word woman in front of it, it'll become more, as you said, more talked about.
Yeah.
And everybody's thinking about gender equity and all of that stuff. And middle management leaders who are women, they might say that, okay, I want to be part of this program where there's all women there, but they will be paying more than their peers.
Yeah.
Or if they have to go for a general leadership program.
Yeah.
There's no need for, I don't think there's a need for, gendered leadership programs. It should be leadership programs. That's it.
Thank you.
Leaders are leaders, wherever they are. They don't have a gendered lens on that.
Yes, look, it's a very interesting area. And at my core, I believe that the answer to this work, gender equity more broadly, is to bring different genders together. Mm-hmm. And have them hear and learn and work together. Mm-hmm. I personally believe that when we kind of do things, if it's a women in leadership program, well, you're preaching to the converted. We need to get everybody in the room so that we can hear and learn all the different perspectives. And leadership is leadership. So I believe that leadership programs in general would be much more impactful if they were gender balanced. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of part of the issue. However, women only cohorts did come up through my PhD. Mm-hmm. And I have heard about them, and we've got some partner organizations which offer them. And even though at my core, I believe that they shouldn't be gendered, there is demand out there for it. Mm-hmm. And we can't ignore that. We can, I have conversations with conference organizers and I try and encourage, to at least think about opening things up a bit. But if there is demand and say women wouldn't feel comfortable doing a mixed gender leadership program and they would only do a women only program, well, then we have to acknowledge and appreciate that. And that is the case for I've spoken to a lot of women
it's freedom
about
of association.
that.
You can mix, and that's a part of the freedoms we have.
Yeah,
we can associate in any group settings.
Yeah.
What the challenge is when you are generally selling to the open market and saying that, you are charging more because you added the new word in front of it. So that's the challenge I have. Not people can associate in any form, any groups. So we all are allowed to mix with whoever we feel comfortable with.
Yeah, I think so. And I just, I know that I enjoy events and experiences which are, mixed gender much more, than I prefer things which are just one gender or another. I just feel like it's more interesting, it's more fun, it's more dynamic. Mm-hmm. The whole experience, you get the benefit mm-hmm. of, the diversity and inclusion. Mm-hmm. It's a whole different experience.
Mm-hmm. From a point of view of, because the first role models people might see and observe a lot is on the TV screens and then through media and whatnot. And specifically in politicians, because they like to present, a clean case. I'm good, no dirt on my jacket. So there's no dot on my white shirt or my clothing. So I'm all clean and clear. So what's the politics of gender equity? How do politicians use the idea of gender equity just to either tokenize or authenticize, if that's a word, be more authentic? So have you seen in your observation, the good and the bad and ugly? Yeah,
well, look, politics more than, probably any other industry representing the population that you serve. Mm-hmm. There's probably no more relevant industry as to the importance of that core concept. Mm-hmm. So any political party which doesn't currently or have plans in place to represent the population that you serve are simply not very smart. Mm-hmm. These are the people that vote you in. Mm-hmm. If they can't see people who look and sound like them, and if they don't think that you're kind of weaving in what their, the needs of different diverse groups have, well, you're never going to get into power. So, it's not an area I know a lot of dead set facts on, but, at the minute, I know that the Australian Labor Party has, I believe, one of the most gender balanced, parties leading the federal government of all time. And something which I keep an eye on is the World Economic Forum Gender Gap Report. And our ranking as a country has gone up from about number 46 in the 50s in the world over the past kind of 7 years up into the teens. And if you dig into the detail about that, a lot of it is to do with the women's representation in politics in our country. So I think that the Labour Party seems to have done a really good job of identifying that. They've had quotas in place for many, many years. And I think other parties who, if don't currently have it, well, what are you doing about it?
As we discussed earlier, that the leadership should not be gendered. It should be, leaders are leaders. Good leaders can lead organizations. Do you think politics should be gendered? So the political leadership should be seen as gendered, that you need to have, male leaders and female leaders, or good leaders essentially who can represent their constituencies. So where do you see that within the political leadership space? It should be gendered or not?
So if you look at the Prime Minister, that's a singular role, right? Yeah. So it's, hey, maybe there could be a job share. Man and woman, right? Hey, who said, you heard it here first, who said that can't be done? That's tricky when it's a singular role, but still there should be a gender lens on everything. And, and then you go, what's the top layer? What's the layer below that? What's the layer below that? What's the layer below that? There should be a gender lens on all of those layers. And they, it should be just as in the corporate sector, same thing, CEO, executive, sub-executive, senior leaders, middle managers. You have to have a lens on all of that and look at all of those layers, because it's a pipeline. These people become these people, become these people, become these people. So I think that whilst, like the Premier, the Prime Minister, that's a singular role, I still believe that when it comes time for, say if there's been a male leader in the role for the last 8 years and they retire or something, should there be a gender lens and maybe a bit of a priority on having a women leader? Absolutely. But a singular role is tricky, but at least you can start looking at the layers below that and make sure that you've got some gender balance going on there.
Yeah. So which means you're suggesting that in political leadership, there's no need for just be leaders. They have to have a gender lens. They have to force a gender lens in some way or form.
I think so, because this work is very deliberate. If you don't have the gender lens or other diversity lenses on it, you slip in to the gendered norms. And I think this is why we're in the position that we're in, because there has been a lack of awareness on it. And then when there has been some awareness, there's been a lot of, a blame and, just banging on about the problem narrative, which doesn't help. I think we need to focus on the solutions. And we need to, people are much more inspired, whenever they see good news stories and, they hear of success stories rather than being, something trying to knock them over the head to drive some message home. It doesn't generally work. We need to inspire, educate, make people aware and let them see what they can do, the part they can play to create a more gender equitable Australia.
From a leadership standpoint, the leaders at different sectors and leadership skills, which are technically transferable, how can one gather and collate them? Can good leaders be created? Essentially, are these skills to be trained yourself on and then become a good leader, or something that you can't create? For example, being a good public speaker, having that confidence of standing up in front of 400 people and then being a good orator, holding the room, all those kind of skills like public or one-to-one interpersonal skills, being very empathetic about it. Can those skills, which are core to a good leader, can those be trained?
any technical skill can be trained. And a leader's job is not to be really good at everything. A leader's job is to look at themselves, identify your own gaps, and surround yourself with people who meet those gaps. No one is born technically really strong at finances, at strategy, but so it comes down to the core, the values, the personality traits, the potential, the passion. These are things. The likes of public speaking. There's absolutely training that some people are natural from that perspective, but should someone not be a leader because they're not natural at that? Absolutely not. There's so many amazing training courses and different things that you can do about that. So the bottom line is that like technical skills should never be a barrier. It's about, leadership is about being able to inspire people, being able to develop the leaders of the future. That's what it's about, and a lot of that is more a lot of that is quite innate, but some of the skills that go around that can absolutely be trained.
In conclusion, if you can talk a bit more your focus on what kind of projects you want to work on towards in the coming years, and what are you focusing on?
We've got so much going on. 2026 is going to be a really exciting year for us. I guess we're going to, as an organization with CEOs for Gender Equity, we're going to just get back to what we're really good at, which is inspiring and supporting CEOs to take action in their workplaces on gender equity. So that's the absolute core of what we do. But we do have a few new exciting different products and services which we're going to be launching, which we've been working really hard on in 2025. So one is the ultimate job sharing toolkit. So something which has every tool, resource which an organization, a leader or an employee could need to ask for and make a success of job sharing. I think it's a really untapped lever to so many gender equity issues. We've also developed the Leading with Gender Equity program, which is designed to really inspirationally and with a heads, hearts and hands approach, inspire middle managers in organizations of how to lead with a more gender equitable lens. So those are a couple of, as well as getting back to doing what we do really well. Those are some new projects on the horizon from a CEOs for Gender Equity perspective. And then personally, I start 2026 with no study requirements, having finished my PhD last year, which was 5 years in the making. So
congratulations on that.
Thank you. So now it's the fun part. It's getting creative with what I do with that 105,000 word thesis and how to cut it up into different resources and developing tools and some consulting offerings, and then kind of looking. I'm really passionate about. There's so much amazing work going on from a gender equity perspective globally. So I'm really keen to kind of dig into some of that and learn globally some best practice and bring that back to my work personally and that of CEOs for Gender Equity.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you so much.